Yo, what is going on, guys? Welcome to the video. I hope your day is going great. Mine's been really awesome. We just finished watching the World Cup. Brazil with the reverse sweep onto Norway. What an exciting match that was. If you guys want, I could upload the highlights to that later on tonight, but I figured for now I'll just stick to like the bigger teams in the bigger games like USA and Canada, which I'm sure most of you guys did see. I uploaded the highlights between Canada versus Brazil, which was a very good game. Brazil actually put up a really good fight. Sure, some of the maps weren't all that close, but ones like Kings Row, that was insanely close and super exciting to watch. It was fun to see a team challenge Canada, and then after that, I did upload the highlights between USA and Austria. This one wasn't really all that close. I really mainly just did it because it was USA, and there was some fun highlights with Sinatra playing Symmetra, Torbjorn, Bastion, just a whole bunch of random heroes throughout the entire team, made it an exciting match. So first things first, I want you guys to comment down below and let me know what you want me to do with the highlights. Should I keep doing them? Do you want me to do every single game, or do you want me to keep it to like the important ones? So leave a comment down below letting me know, and now let's go ahead and talk about this video because it is juicy, boys. The Los Angeles Valiant, as you guys know by the title, have released 4 players. So the players that are being released, we have Verbo, Finzi, Numlocked, and Grim Reality. This is now the 6th Overwatch League team from Season 1 that has released 3 or more players in the off-season. So big changes come into the LA Valiant. Honestly though, it wasn't all that surprising because LA Valiant, they weren't the type of team that ever used their substitutes. Teams like the LA Gladiators, now their cuts were surprising because they actually did use their substitutes here and there, and some of them were pretty popular players. Unlike them though, the LA Valiant, they just never put these guys on the stage. Like, I can't remember Numlocked, Finzi, Verbo. Actually, Verbo did touch it a couple times in stage 1 and 2, maybe once in like stage 3, but that's it. He didn't get much time, which is unfortunate because I think he's a strong leader, maybe not as good as Custa, but I feel like he will get a chance to join another Overwatch League team or at least a Contenders Academy team. But we will get into the players that got released a little bit more, talking about if they can make another team, what their future is like, and what the LA Valiant are going to do. And then after that, guys, we are talking about the expansion teams coming into Season 2 because it is official. Every single Overwatch League team was announced by Blizzard today. We know who's running all the teams. We definitely have some big ballers coming into the Overwatch League for the next season. We're going to talk all about these teams, who they are, and a whole bunch of other good stuff, guys. So if this video sounds exciting to you, do not forget, pause it, go down below, click the like button. We always shoot for 1,000 here, boys. And then lastly, guys, if you do enjoy my videos and you haven't already, click that red subscription box. Because if you want to stay updated on anything and everything Overwatch eSports, whether it's the League or the World Cup, you want to know which players get released, who gets picked up, who won what game, analysis, predictions, anything that has to do with Overwatch, guys, it's on my channel. I've been uploading like 3 videos a day for the past 2 weeks, every single day. We're out here grinding. Turn post notifications on if you don't want to miss a video. And now without further ado, let's go ahead and hop into it. Alright, so starting off with the LA Valiant news, this is what they posted on their Twitter. The Los Angeles Valiant have released Verbo, Numlocked, Finzi, and Grim Reality from their contracts. We thank them for their contributions in the team and wish them the continued success in their careers. And then on their website, they posted this. The LA Valiant have declined to renew the following contracts: Numlocked, Verbo, Finzi, and Grim Reality, who was an assistant coach. So technically, we're seeing 3 players get released and then an assistant coach, but Grim Reality was once a player. I still feel kind of like he is a player for them. And then down below, the CEO of the LA Valiant, Noah Winston, did say something about the players. It was very small and I kind of find it funny. We thank Numlocked, Verbo, Finzi, and Grim Reality for their contributions to the LA Valiant during Overwatch League's inaugural season and wish well for them in future endeavors. Holy crap, guys. I literally just woke up. I was making this video 6 hours ago at 6 p.m. and now it is 12:30 a.m. I collapsed. I was so tired, but we're back on it. It's going to be a little late. Sorry about that, but let's hop back into it. So not really that big of a statement coming out from Noah Winston, and the reason why I find it funny is because a lot of these Overwatch League teams are just dropping a ton of players, and they don't say much about it. It's just like, oh yeah, thank you for playing for us in the first season, bye. It would be nice to get a little more insight from these teams. I know we kind of get it from the players when they do their twit longs and stuff like that, but not even all of them are doing that. Maybe like a third of them have, and obviously they don't want to open up and say a bunch of crap that is bad because it could reflect on them when they're looking for a new team for next season. So I would love to hear what the LA Valiant or just any organization that's dropping most of their players this season have to say about it. Like, I want to hear how come Numlocked didn't play one game the entire season. I get that Fate is really good, but Numlocked was also really good. How come there was never any consideration in running him? Regardless, though, let's go to move on now and look at the players individually and see if they can find a new team for next year in the Overwatch League. So let's go ahead and start off with Numlocked, which I just mentioned, who I personally think is pretty good. Now, I haven't seen him play in about a year since he sat on the bench in the Overwatch League, but I do know dating back 1 year ago when he was competing with Envision eSports in Contender Season 1, he was very good. He was one of the best main tanks in that entire league. And I think if he is at that same skill level he was at last year, he would definitely be able to find a way on one of these expansion teams, maybe not as a starter, but at least a sub again. It all also comes down to how many of these Western North American organizations that bought into the Overwatch League this year are going to look for Western players and not just go full Korean. Because if 3 out of 4 of them actually are going for Western players, then Numlocked really does have a good chance. Now, if only one of them is, it's going to be tough because there's going to be a lot of Western main tanks that just got released that are going to try to get that spot. iRemix, Swoosh, Numlocked. Not saying that Swoosh is going to be good competition, but he is somebody that was released, and that is a main tank who might receive a trial. As well as North American contenders players who are Western right now, like Beast Halo. He's definitely going to get trials for the Overwatch League, as well as a ton of European main tanks, some from the World Cup, some from contenders. There's a lot of competition out there for those slots, and if there's only one, it's going to be tough to get that. Then moving on to someone like Verbo, who did get a little bit of playtime, but it's hard to remember when he did just because it was so long ago, and it wasn't really that many games, and he just played Lucio and a little bit of Mercy. Again, I feel like personally last year around this time, he was a solid player, and he was a good leader for the Immortals roster. Of course, some things do change over time, and I do think the competition for a main support role would be a lot easier than a main tank role, so I think Verbo could have a better chance in that regard. But overall, I do think he'll still get a chance, at least by one team, and if he doesn't make it, he'll definitely be on a strong academy team, because we also have to remember with all these expansion teams coming into the league, 4 of them are located in North America and probably will get academy teams. Now moving on to Finzi, this was an interesting pickup. LA Valiant, they got him at the very end of the signing window in the trade deadline, and I think he played maybe 1 game, and honestly I don't know too much about Finzi. He played for a Western Overwatch contenders team at one point. I just don't know too much about him. His team never did good in contenders. It's hard to say whether or not he is good. Maybe he'll get a trial just because he can say he was on the LA Valiant, but I don't know. It really just depends on his skill, so it's all up to him. Then moving on to the last player that was released, we have Grim Reality. Assistant coach, ex-player. I don't know what he's going to do. He may look for coaching opportunities. He may try to play again. Personally, I don't think he really can play. He fell off really hard at the end of contenders right before the Overwatch League. It was clear that his skills were degrading. Kind of similar to my situation, but a little less amplified. So we'll see what Grim Reality can do. Probably going to be coaching some team somewhere. Maybe an academy, maybe an Overwatch League assistant coach on another team. We'll just have to see. But that's it for the players. That's it for the LA Valiant. We need to move on because we have a ton to cover about these expansion teams, guys. Oh my goodness. Alright guys, so today the overview number 98 happened. It's a show that Chan Man V and Fishsticks always host. They had Jacob Wolf on. And on this podcast, Jacob Wolf pretty much covered every single expansion team from the top to the bottom, giving us all the information we need about who owns the spots, how much they paid for the spots, how it's structured, who's going to be like at the top of it, making decisions for the players and the rosters. So I figured since Jacob Wolf has so much great insight on all these teams, it would be good to let him just tell you guys instead of me. So I'm going to roll a ton of clips from the show. Big shout out to Chan Man V and the overview. If you guys want to go subscribe to his channel down below, link will be in the description. But let's go ahead and roll it.
So I guess I'll break down city and then break down owner.
Sure.
So it's in North America, it's Vancouver, which is owned by the Aquilini Group, which is the ownership of the Vancouver Canucks and the Rogers Arena hockey team in the corresponding arena in Vancouver. In Toronto, it is Splice and Overactive Media, as well as backing from the Kimmel family, which are a wealthy Canadian family in Canada. They own a bunch of different companies across like hospitality. Chase Hospitality Group is one that Michael Kimmel owns. His brother owns a company called Harlow Capital, who are involved. There's another company that his uncle owns called Westdale Properties, and his parents are very large Canadian wealthy philanthropists. So they are backing Splice and Overactive in this purchase, which is a $35 million slot purchase. In Washington, D.C., there's a bunch of, there's like 4 really different parties involved. So Mark Ein, who is the owner of the Washington Castles, which are a team tennis team in Washington, D.C. And he also runs a company called Capital Investment Corp. 4, which are based in New York and Washington, D.C., and they are involved. The guy that runs that for him, Dyson Dryden, is also an investor. And then also there's another company called Artist Capital Management, which are based in New York and have some ties to some of the big sports owners in DC. They're affiliated and friends. So that is the DC team. And then in Atlanta, which is confirmed about a month ago, is Atlanta Esports Ventures, which is a company backed by Cox Enterprises, the giant media conglomerate, Cox Cable, Cox Internet in the Southeast. And then they are run by a company called Province Inc., who are a consulting firm based out of Las Vegas. So Europe, there's only one team. It is Paris. And from my understanding of like reading the interviews today, it is basically all of France as part of that region, which is how it works. Like the Mayhem own almost all of Florida, the Spitfire own almost all of England. You usually own your state and maybe even surrounding states if you buy like a smaller area. So that's in Paris. It's owned by a company called DM eSports, which is a new entity. I think a lot of people were confused because the communication was pretty bad around what this is. DM eSports is the esports company owned by the McCourt family. Specifically Frank McCourt, who is the former owner of the Los Angeles Dodgers, and he's the current owner of the Los Angeles Marathon and Olympique de Marseille, the soccer team in France. That's the connection to France. His son, Drew McCourt, which is what DM stands for, is the one that is leading it. And Drew is also very involved in McCourt Global, which oversees all their real estate holdings. A little bit of background on them. They Frank is originally from Boston and made a lot of his come up as a financer by buying parking lots across multiple sports arenas. And parking lots are actually a pretty big money making business. So he owns parking lots all across like Boston and Los Angeles and other things as well. He still owns a portion of the parking lot outside the Dodger Stadium, even though he doesn't own the Dodgers anymore. And so he used to own the Dodgers. He bankrupted the Dodgers while they were the highest selling team in all of traditional baseball. They were selling more tickets than everyone else. They were incredibly popular, and he bankrupted them by, from my understanding, and I was not a sports reporter at the time, leaning other loans with the Dodgers as collateral, which the MLB had to bail him out. The Dodgers are now owned. The Dodgers are now owned by a group like Peter Guber, Magic Johnson, and Guggenheim Baseball. So yeah, that's DM eSports. And then in Asia, there are 3 new Chinese teams. There is Chengdu, which is owned by Huya, which is a multi-billion-dollar streaming platform. It's a Twitch competitor in China, since Twitch is not necessarily in China at this point, at least on that level. So Huya and Douyu are the 2 biggest streaming sites in esports there in China. Huya received $461 million of investment from Tencent in March. And they are also a public company on the New York Stock Exchange. I believe they're worth about $3.52 billion. Pretty big deal. That's the Chengdu owner. In Hangzhou, there's another streaming and media company called Bilibili. Bilibili is essentially, I would compare it for Western viewers to like Crunchyroll or Funimation. They're an anime and recently got into esports a couple months ago. Anime and esports media content website that does streaming and VODs and things like that. They're the Chinese equivalent to those 2 companies. And then lastly is the Ninking Group, who own Guangzhou. The Ninking Group is probably I would say the least wealthy of all of the Chinese ownership here. I think Bilibili is worth around $2 million. The owner of the Ninking Group is worth about $1 billion last I looked, and his net worth. And I mean, that's still a lot of money, but when you think about how much you're paying for these franchise fees, that's almost like a 20th of his wealth, which is a lot of money when you sponsor an Overwatch League team. So, I mean, comparatively, this is a big investment for them. They are the owners of the Guangzhou Long Lions, which is the Chinese Basketball Association team there. And that is your 8 owners in the Overwatch League.
So there it is, guys, an extensive breakdown of each owner and how the teams will be structured, who's making the decisions for their Overwatch League teams. Now, at the end there, he did get real in-depth with the Chinese teams, and then he continues to talk about them in a part that I think is really important, covering not only the worth of these Overwatch League spots and why they were sold more to Chinese teams and not European teams, because there's a ton of people who are really upset that Europe got absolutely no teams besides one in Paris, which we all expected at least 2, while China thrived and got 4 spots total now moving into the next season, despite the Overwatch League Season 1 champions being from Europe. So let's go and roll everything he had to say about the prices of these spots and why there's so many Chinese teams and maybe not so many in Europe.
Yeah, so Toronto was sold for 35 for sure, and I think it scales up from there. So I think the American teams were a little bit more than that, and I think the Chinese teams were probably the most expensive of all of them. Because there was a little bit of contention there. There were other Chinese buyers that wanted in. If they would have sold 4 or 5 Chinese teams, I think they probably could have if they really wanted to. So I wrote a column on this in February, and I think it's still very true to this day, is a lot of your investors that buy into this are from 3 nationalities. And they are either American, Chinese, or Middle Eastern, or I guess 3 ethnicities. And that the reason that is because, one, they tend to have a higher wealth than a lot of the other smaller countries. The more people you have in the country, the more you can, I guess, produce commerce and produce demand for whatever product you sell, whether that be a streaming website or whether that be arenas that you're hosting and you're selling tickets and whatever it may be, right? And so those investors tend to, one, have a lot more money. And that's why you see, like, the Paris team is owned by an American, right? Mm-hmm. The London team owned by Americans. It's why there's a problem in Europe, because Europe are smaller countries. The football teams in Europe are not massively wealthy. They are, but they're worth a lot, but like not all of them are. Only the really top of the line in each country are. And therefore it presents this kind of different investment mentality when you have less money and when you're more conservative with how you spend it. That is not the case in America, because venture capital, things in Silicon Valley, San Francisco, and surrounding areas is like the mindset is we spend a lot and we hope to make a return. In China, it's very similar. They have a lot of wealth, and they like to kind of put it wherever they may be. In this case, there are 3 Overwatch teams. In the Middle East, there were definitely some Middle Eastern buyers who negotiated with Blizzard and were in the thick of these discussions, and there were last season as well. Didn't work out, but I certainly wouldn't be surprised next year if we saw a Middle Eastern team in like Saudi Arabia or the United Arab Emirates, because they also have a lot of wealth from oil and other industries. So in Europe and other parts of Asia, you heard rumors of like Bangkok. There was definitely a group talking about that. It was a money issue at the end. You heard rumors of Busan. You heard rumors of Melbourne. All of that came down to money. Like it strictly came down to like, how can we structure this to make sure we can afford it without really hurting our business?
So really good insight there on where the money for these Overwatch League teams are coming. It's from America. It's from China. That's why we see so many American spots and so many spots in China. If the money was coming from European people, then they would want it to be in European cities. And then again, in this last clip, Jacob Wolf just reassures and nails it into the coffin that this is the reason why we're not getting European teams. They just don't want to invest. Let's go ahead and roll the clip.
I want to make it very clear. Blizzard tried to get the rest of Europe. I saw people from German organizations at the suite level of the Barclays Center in July. And they were like, put it this way, G2 eSports was there, and they were in discussion for Berlin at one point, and it didn't work out in the end, obviously. All the teams are confirmed for the next season, and they tried to sell in the Nordic region. I mean, Pete Vlastelica gave an interview that published this morning with the Washington Post where he said Europe is next. And he's like, we have to focus on it. He's like, China was this year and Europe is next.
So there it is. Jacob Wolf saying that Blizzard is going to focus on Europe next year. And again, guys, there's nobody better to listen to than Jacob Wolf about all of this, because for the last 6 or 5 months, he's been hardcore focused on the Overwatch League expansion series and trying to figure out who the cities are, who the teams are, who's going to be owning them, and all that stuff. There's literally nobody outside of the teams in the entire world that knows information more than Jacob Wolf about all of this. So that's why I played all these clips. I hope you guys enjoyed the information. Be sure, go check out Chanman and the overview. It was a great show. It went on for 2 hours. Jacob Wolf really delivered. Big shout out to Chanman and the whole overview. Go subscribe. Link is down in the description. And that's going to be it, guys. Thank you for watching the video. Be sure to let me know what you guys want me to continue to do with my channel. Should I do the highlights again tomorrow for the World Cup? And that's going to be it. Be sure to like, subscribe. I'll see you guys tomorrow or later today. I'll see you in like 4 hours probably. Peace.